Let's be friends.
Have you not?
And here we go.
And here we go indeed. And welcome back, everybody. Good evening, and welcome back to the Ambassadorial Wing and a new installment in the Live Rewind review series. And tonight, we're going to be going Sonic, Supersonic, 3 times over. Tonight, I'll be bringing you all my thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which opened up this past weekend. And going to be doing a little bit of a broader discussion on the genre of the video game movie. We'll touch upon that a little bit here and there and everything as the stream goes on. But as always, if this is your first visit to the Ambassador Wing, welcome. Hope you enjoyed the stream tonight. Hope you enjoyed the discussion. And as I often do with these live rewinds and the other reviews and streams and so on that I have here on the channel, I have included this link to the stream in the chat. So if you want to join me for the discussion, the link is there. All you got to do is hit, I'll add you in, and we can talk about Sonic the Hedgehog 3. But also, make sure you smash that like button, share this out with all of your friends, especially those who are fans of the video game movie genre or just fans of Sonic the Hedgehog in general. And as always, share your comments in the chat, either live or after the fact. And, well, with all that being said, let's talk Sonic. Now, a little bit of context. Did I play Sonic the Hedgehog, the video game, as a kid, as a teenager? Yes, I did. I love those games. Yes, I did, particularly for the Sega Genesis. Did I play some of the later iterations? No, I didn't. And it wasn't so much that I disliked them. It was just a kind of a fact I had grown out of that particular genre of game. I had grown beyond it. And I have always been a fan to varying degrees of the video game based movies that are based on the concept or the idea of a video game, and especially with how thematic and massive video games have gotten over the last, say, 20 some odd years. In a lot of ways, a video game has become much like a playable movie. But the question always was, could a video game be successfully turned into a movie, or in this particular case, a movie franchise? We got our first outing with that, of course, in the mid-90s with the, I would say, cult classic, a personal favorite of mine, and many others, many of my contemporaries, many of my friends, and so on. In the case of Mortal Kombat, the New Line Cinema film from, like I said, the mid-90s. I believe it came out in 1994 or 95. I actually did a review of this back about a year and a half ago, give or take. And at the time, it was a very successful, it was a very well received video game movie. It was one that said video game movies could be. It told a compelling story. It was fun. It was action packed. It was well paced, and by no means dull. Now, have there been missteps with the video game genre? Yes, there have. And they are, well, more numerous than there have been successful ones. Now, I would be remiss to mention at least one that I still regard as a guilty pleasure. That, of course, being the 1990s live action Street Fighter game with Jean-Claude Van Damme and the late great Raul Julia as M. Bison. Is it cheesy? Yes. Is it corny? Yes. Does it border on bad? Yes. But do I love it any less? No. But then fast forward a few decades, and, well, particularly the year of 2020, when a certain pandemic gripped the globe, and, well, Sonic Mania also gripped the globe just before that. And actually, Sonic the Hedgehog, the first film in this series, was one of the last films I got to see in theaters before everything got shut down. And as I mentioned, I have always enjoyed video game movies. They are something they connect to my childhood, they connect to my teenage years, and Sonic the Hedgehog always was a character that I very much enjoyed. Now, there was always some controversy back in those days with the Sonic the Hedgehog, primarily in terms of his design. Now, the voice actor who did the voice, obviously nobody had a big problem with him. But the design for Sonic was less than well, good. It was actually nightmare inducing, to say the least. And of course, the studio, being smart, listened to the fans, listened to the general public, and was like, okay, what can we do to make this better? And so, of course, they went back, did some redesign. And of course, now we have the Sonic the Hedgehog that we all know and love. That's more in keeping with the original design. Obviously, more graphically detailed, obviously looks more like a anthropomorphized hedgehog along with tails and knuckles. And of course, the introduction of Sonic's main nemesis, that of course being Dr. Ivo Robotnik, played by, of course, Mr. Jim Carrey. And obviously we have now I do want to make one thing. I want to make one thing clear. I saw Sonic 1. I thoroughly enjoyed it at the time, and I still do. I unfortunately now I do have it on 4K video, but I have not had a chance. I did not have a chance to watch Sonic 2 before I went to see Sonic 3 this past Saturday. So I do own up to that. Does that mean I'm not going to watch it? Yes, I am. It's a matter of making the time to do so, obviously. So I do own up to that. I did not see Sonic 2 before I got to see Sonic 3. Um, Me and Madam Ambassador were going to go see it, but unfortunately, she wasn't feeling the best. And one of my buddies from college is like, I'll go. I'm like, okay, we'll go. So me and my buddy from college and everything, we went to see Sonic 3 the other night after I had gotten off work and had an absolutely wonderful time. We got to catch up a little bit and everything. We get to meet up every once or twice a year and everything to keep in touch and hang out and everything. Go to the movies. We actually went to see Deadpool and Wolverine back in the summer when that had come out. View of that, and I was aware of the introduction of Knuckles and who did the voice of Knuckles, that of course being Idris Elba. And I will admit, this is my first introduction to Idris Elba as the character of Knuckles. His voice performance, I will say, he did a very, very good job. I've always liked Idris Elba as an actor, regardless of he's in front of the screen in person or if he's doing a voice part. As far as I know, this is for his first foray, well, aside from Sonic 2, into voice acting. But he did a wonderful job as the voice of Knuckles. And of course, we had Chris Pine and everything returning as Tom and everything. Sonic's human guardian, in a manner of speaking. I was expecting to go into this movie and having a good time with my buddy. And we did. We laughed, we cheered, we were thoroughly and early entertained. I will say this movie, if you are a kid of the 90s, whether you are a kid of the 90s or a teenager of the 90s, whether you have played the Sonic games in the past, whether it was going all the way back to the old Sega Genesis days or the more modern consoles and so on, you will enjoy this movie. If you enjoyed the first two films, you will enjoy this movie. Just a heads up to those of you who have not seen Sonic, or if spoilers bother you, obviously click away, go back, go see the movie if you plan to, and then come back and watch the review in its full length. But for those of you who don't mind spoilers, there will be some spoilers. I'll try to do my best to not do a full spoiler, but I gotta talk about this or anything, so there's going to be spoilers. Anyway, up that point, aside from that point, we have, of course, Sonic and Tails and Knuckles. They're living on Earth. They have a nice, quiet life with Tom, played by Chris Pine, and his significant other. And hang on just a minute, I should have done this before I started, but I forgot to. So just bear with me for just 1 second, because I want to make sure I have all the particulars here. Sonic 3 cast. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Tom Wachowski. You've got T. Wachowski, his wife. Of course, you got Jim Carrey as Robotnik. You've got Ben Schwartz returned as the voice of Sonic. Let's see. I know there's. I mean, as I mentioned, Idris Elba did the voice of Knuckles. I'm trying to find the actor who did the voice of. Where are you? Okay, this is odd. For some reason, it's not listing the voice of who did the voice of Tails. Very odd. Anyways, you had Christian Ritter, who was a member of the organization Gun, as Director Rockwell. Very much enjoyed her character. Obviously, she was introduced more formally in Sonic 3, obviously. And as I mentioned, and to the chat, sorry I didn't see you before there, Nerd with Cigar. Kate, good to see you, Kate. Pleasure having you here tonight. As I was saying, the cast. I can't anyway, don't want to get bogged down on one point. Although there is one other point I do want to bring up. They had obviously Jim Carrey return as Ivo Robotnik, and they also had him do a dual role as Ivo Robotnik's grandfather, which I actually found somewhat interesting because you had Jim Carrey essentially doing a dual performance, and I have to admit it came off very seamlessly. So I was very, very impressed with that. I will. Of course, Jim Carrey has always been a actor who I've held a lot of appreciation for. He's always been very entertaining, aside from his political or social opinions, which we won't get into here. As an actor, I like him. I enjoy his work. I liked him in this part. I remember him when they introduced him for Ivo Robotnik or Dr. Robotnik for the first Sonic movie, and I was like, I saw him on that screen. And I was like, yeah, that's a good casting. And not to mention, it's Jim Carrey. You know, he'll bring a lot of enthusiasm and energy to that character, especially since he does have to dress in a green bodysuit and a green makeup for hours on end in his iconic role as the live action Grinch. But there was one other member to the cast that I was actually somewhat surprised. I had to ask my buddy because, of course, we had of Shadow the Hedgehog. When I heard the voice, I was like, that sounds so familiar, but I cannot place it. And I was like, who is that? And he's like, oh, that's KeanuReeves. I was like, KeanuReeves is doing video game movies now? He's like, yeah, at least this one. I'm like, he's doing Shadow. Yeah. I was like, wow. And I have to admit, KeanuReeves, I know him for his work in front of the camera. He's always been an actor that I've very much enjoyed. He's done a lot of movies. I mean, The Matrix, the Bill and Ted movies, John Wick, Constantine. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. And to the best of my knowledge, this is as far as I know, his first foray into voice acting. And I have to admit, he did a good job. He did a very give a very good, convincing performance as Shadow the Hedgehog. And honestly, he brought, I think, a lot of credibility to the character Shadow, much in the same way as Idris Elba and Ben Schwartz and the voice actor who did the voice of Tails. And I have to admit, I like the idea that they made Tails, the gadget um, expert of the team of Team Sonic, or just the team as they eventually call themselves. Because you've got Sonic, who's the speedster, the slash leader. You've got Knuckles, who's the muscle, and then you've got Tails, who's the tech expert. And that honestly was a good dynamic. They still were butting heads. They were still working things out, and Sonic was still dealing with having to work within the confines of a team. And this is a theme that goes throughout the entire movie, and it does culminate in a really interesting way. And I have to admit, the action, the pacing, the plot, it was well laid out. It was by any means dull. This was about an hour and a half, maybe an hour and a half plus movie, and it did not feel like it because you were engaged. The characters were themselves engaging. The live action characters they didn't dominate the story per se. They were there when they were needed, and then they were um, brought back in when appropriate for the story itself. The directors and the writers knew what the fans wanted. They wanted to see Sonic and Tails and Knuckles working together as a team. Bring in Robotnik. They knew when to bring in his assistant. I remember, yeah, Agent Stone, uh, played by Lee Mujaub, if I'm pronouncing the actor's name correctly. I hope I am. And honestly, it was a very well paced action adventure movie, which is what most video game movies lean toward, is more action adventure. But in some instances, some of it is less family friendly, and others are more so. I would definitely say Sonic leans more towards the family friendly dynamic in terms of what type of genre of video game movie this is. I would liken it to the Super Mario movie that was released a couple of years ago that they did all in CGI, and I actually very much enjoyed that one as well. I wanted to see it in theaters, but eventually me and the missus, we got it on 4K. We got a chance to sit down and watch it, and honestly, I thoroughly enjoyed, just a brief aside, I thoroughly enjoyed the Super Mario Brothers movie. I thought the idea of going full CGI with it was the right move for this type of movie, because you're dealing with a more fantastical world. And honestly, with Sonic the Hedgehog, he works well as a CGI character in a real life setting. Granted, somewhat exaggerated, but at the same time, a real world setting. Whereas with Super Mario Brothers, this is more of a fantastical type of universe and fit more in keeping with a CGI constructed universe, or a CGI constructed world. And that's the other thing about video game movies, and particularly the advent of CGI technology, which have become more and more impressive as the years have gone on. You get the real impression that Sonic and Tails and Knuckles and Shadow are all right there, and even when Jim Carrey is as both Robotniks, the younger and the older version of him, uh, iterations of the character. Now, no, this when I say this, Jim Carrey was not playing a alternate universe version of Robotnik. He was playing Ivo Robotnik's grandfather, as I mentioned before, and his grandfather's character does play a key part in the story. And I will say, this movie does have a very well placed emotional center. And that right there is one of the things that brings you in. Now, for people like myself, do I enjoy that sort of thing with a movie like this? Sure, I do. Even at my age, in my mid 40s, do I enjoy what would be considered a kids friendly movie or a family friendly movie? but it's still going to resonate with someone like me or my best friend or my wife, even though we don't have children? Yeah, I do, because it's reminiscent of the animated shows and series that we grew up with as children, just with a much better budget on a much larger scale. So a movie like this is going to resonate with a Gen Xer or a Gen Z or a millennial or whatever the case may be, or even generations before those three particular ones. This is a movie that grandparents or parents can take their kids or grandkids to, and everybody's going to have a good time. Not to say that there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor. There is a bit, but this movie doesn't placate to a child's audience or what have you, or a teenage audience. It's a movie that's going to resonate with a broad base audience in many ways. And some, I'm not even going to go down that road because honestly, it's not even pertinent. One of the other things I will mention about Sonic 3. It has a very consistent through line from the first movie, and I would imagine from the second movie, because as I've mentioned, I haven't seen the second movie as of yet, but I'm going to. And I might do a short video regarding Sonic 2 to give my thoughts on that, but that'll be later on, obviously. But with Sonic 3, what this movie delivers is fast-paced action, a good message that resonates with everybody, honestly, and has a very strong and talented cast. By no means a lackluster cast to any degree. It's a cast that they play to their strengths. They give you exactly what they expect you to. What you expect from them, and is not by any means boring or preachy. Now, the one character that I was the most interested in was obviously, besides from the main trio, was the character of Shadow the Hedgehog, because I was aware of Shadow the Hedgehog. I mean, as I mentioned, I haven't played the later iteration or later generation Sonic the Hedgehog games. I think the last one that I did play was on the I want to say maybe the Sega Saturn or one of the other PlayStation consoles, if memory serves. But that was the last time that I played a Sonic the Hedgehog game. But I was aware of the introduction of the new characters like Shadow and like Amy and so on, and Tails and Knuckles and what have you. Now, granted, I had played Sonic 2, and that's when Tails was obviously introduced. And seeing the two of them work together, and obviously seeing the three of them work together, was honestly a really, for someone of my generation, was a really neat treat. Won't lie. But the character that I found the most intriguing was Shadow. And they made Shadow this tragic figure. And I won't go into why. I'll allude to a few things, but I'm not going to go full spoilers on him. But KeanuReeves' voice performance as Shadow was very convincing, not to mention the design of Shadow the Hedgehog, the CGI design, which I think most everyone has seen at this point through the trailers and so on, or if you've seen the movie. And KeanuReeves gives a very strong performance just through his voice. Now, do I like to believe that they use some of his facial expressions during the recording session for Shadow's own expressions in the movie for his CGI model? Yeah, I do. And that's often been a practice or anything with CGI artists or anything, that they'll go back and look at the footage if they're doing video recording of the voice recordings for a particular character for a movie. And honestly, the journey that Shadow goes on, because he does go on a journey through this, and it does feel like a full journey, it's heartbreaking, but at the same time, the way he comes out of it, he's a better character at the end, and he does have somewhat of a tragic end, but I won't say more than that. Excuse me. Now, the other question y'all might be asking, Ambassador, how has Sonic fared against Mufasa? Well, I'm not going to rub salt in anybody's wounds, and I'm not going to rub dirt in anyone's faces. I'm just going to give the bear, and I'm not saying this with any degree of enthusiasm. I'm just giving the just give me a minute. Sonic 3 box office. Here we go. Okay, and this is from Variety, which I'm gonna take as a credible source. Everything as I often do. As of right now, Sonic 3 taken in a $60 million debut, while Mufasa has taken in a $35 million debut. Now, the thing that I find the thing that I find interesting, at least this is true in my area, at my local theaters in my area. Mufasa had more showings at practically every single theater at every single theater in my area than Sonic 3 did. And yet somehow Sonic 3 outpaced and I would doubled Mufasa's box office. Now, I would imagine a variety of factors as to why exactly this happened. Obviously, this is the third franchise that people have resonated with and has had a lot of positive word of mouth that has had two solid entries previously. I mean, despite the pandemic in 2020, Sonic the Hedgehog, the first one, actually did relatively well box office wise. And obviously Sonic 2 did as well. But you have in a long-standing and well-known franchise, the House of Mouse, and their newest action. I don't want to see, in this case, it's not a remake, but it's a live-action prequel, because this deals with Mufasa as a young cub. Now, I did talk with friends offline and everything on social media and so on, and say, yeah, there's a distinct possibility that Sonic's probably going to choose Mufasa. And weekend, that is the case. Now, obviously, we've got the holidays to come up and everything, and lots of people go to the movies over the holidays. So, do I think people are still going to gravitate towards Mufasa just as much as they are Sonic 3? More than likely. Do I think Sonic may beat out Mufasa? Time will have to tell. I am, if nothing, a pragmatist. I wait and see how things go before I'm going to make a definitive answer. But is there a possibility that Sonic 3 may do better domestically, at least, or worldwide in terms of box office than Mufasa? It's a distinct possibility. And if you look at all of the variables in regards to this, Disney has had kind of a spotty, has had a up and down year. Let's put it that way. They've had some hits, they've had some movies that have done well, and they've had some movies that have tremendous. Do I think Mufasa is necessarily going to? There's a possibility it may not. There may be people that want to go see it. Obviously, uh, people did go to see it. Now, granted, 35 million actually came in second place behind Sonic, but Sonic 3 doubled the box office, at least in my area, with fewer showings on fewer screens than Mufasa did. Now, Paramount's no by no means a slouch in terms of a studio. Granted, they're going up against Disney, but considering the numbers here, at least at the outset, I would say probably there is a possibility that, excuse me, that Sonic 3 might actually win out. Might be the bigger box office success. I mean, because it's already got a substantial lead on Mufasa. Not to mention for the majority of what I have heard in terms of reviews and so on, word of mouth about Sonic 3 has been very positive. I mean, does it have some minor issues in terms of, done suspension of believability of disbelief? Yeah, sure. But here's the thing. We're dealing with a video game movie in a fictional universe. The laws of physics and various other things can be forgiven for a movie like this. Like, for instance, I'll give y'all one. I'll give y'all a couple of examples. In the final confrontation in the movie, there is several scenes where Sonic and Shadow are in outer space without any type of suits or anything else, and yet they're able to survive and they're able to talk and so on while in outer space. Does that kind of push the realm of suspension of disbelief? Yes, but here's the thing: these are fictional characters. You can pretty much make them do whatever you want the story have them do. So having Sonic and Sonic and Shadow in outer space talking and moving around and fighting and so on, it just works. Now, I will give one reference point. When me and my buddy were watching this, I was like, because him and I are both fans of the original Dragon Ball Z anime and the manga, particularly the anime. He's more of a manga slash anime. I'm more just the anime fan, but we still understand each other. I was like, this is I like during the final battle. I was like, this is almost like when Goku and Vegeta are going head to head against one another, and they're fighting in outer space. And we were just sitting there laughing and cheering like a couple of goofballs. But it works. It just plain works. Now the other point is the I of these characters that can move at these massively supersonic speeds, and it doesn't cause all sorts of catastrophes around the world. And there's a line in the movie, and it's between Tom and his wife and Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, and they're like, "Hey, you are three catastrophic events waiting to happen. And they're all like, yeah, we know. And they just kind of play it off. When you have three beings that could cause a disaster on a global scale, not something you necessarily want. At the same time, you can't take a movie like this too seriously. Because remember, it is ultimately a video game movie. It operates on video game logic. Now, in terms of the reintroduction of Jim Carrey as Dr. Ivo Robotnik and his grandfather, but more so as Ivo Robotnik. Let me just put it to you this way. Robotnik got fat. He truly did somewhat turn into an Eggman, as he's known as in various iterations of the Sonic the Hedgehog video games. He's known as Dr. Eggman rather than Dr. Robotnik. And he very much obviously it's a prosthetic belly and so on. But the character design from one movie to another has pretty much stayed consistent. But the addition of a fat Dr. Robotnik, it did it did give for some comedic moments. And of course, as I said, Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik was, I think, in the very beginning with the first movie, just absolutely on point casting. And there's another moment in the movie where Sonic and Tails and Knuckles come back to Tom and his wife. I'm trying to remember her name. Ah, shoot, I closed that tab. Anyway, and they're sitting around. They're like, "Yeah, it's so nice not having to worry about world-class catastrophes and just doing whatever we want and doing all these different hobbies." And Sonic and Tails and Knuckles are like, "Are you guys in?" They're like, "Oh yes, please. We're so bored. Please let us come with you. We're so bored." And they're like, "Well, we actually have something that you can do." And they're like, "Okay, yeah, please. What? And there's actually a really cool it's a self-referential reference, because for those of you that probably remember, Paramount Studios is also the studio that has financed and released all of the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movies. And they actually reference, can't we just get Tom Cruise to do this instead? And they're like, "No, we already talked about this. That will not work." Although I won't lie, having Tom Cruise and perhaps a later episode in the Sonic movie franchise, I would not be in opposition of. So if Tom Cruise, if you hear this, come do Sonic. We like you as Ethan Hunt. We like you as Maverick from Top Gun. Come play a character in the Sonic the Hedgehog universe. We'll show you some love here too, man. Because, well, ever since you left the Church of Scientology, you've gotten a lot more normal, and you've gotten a lot more popular. Just saying. Tom, we love you, man. But the whole breaking into what is known as quarters is honestly a really fun sequence. It's played for laughs, obviously, but it's also played semi-seriously, because honestly, what they're trying to pull off is they're trying to beat Robotnik and his grandfather to gain this pass key or whatever to this, well, as the old cliche goes, there's always a super mega death ray that's going to destroy the world. And in this case, there really is a super mega death ray that's going to destroy the world. And it was built by Robotnik's grandfather. Now, in terms of the score for this movie, it is part symphonic. It is partly score driven. but they do have several pop songs and rock songs and everything for various sequences of the movie. And I will not lie, I may try to track. I imagine they did do a soundtrack, a CD soundtrack for Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And if I can find it, I'm definitely going to get it one way or another because this had some really kick ass, some really good music to it and really fit in the spirit of the movie itself. And it fit the tone of the particular moments in the movie that needed and amped you up at other points, which was also proper, which was appropriate. So, do I kind of switching gears a little bit back to another point that I was discussing earlier? Do I think Sonic 3 has legs that will carry it for its full runtime or its full release time and maybe beyond? Yeah, definitely. This is a very it is a very strong addition to the franchise. It's well paced, it's well acted, it was obviously well written. The CGI is on point. This is by no means sloppy or lazy CGI. No way in hell is it. And honestly, it's a good time, it's a good ride, and whether I encourage you, if you've not seen the previous two films, do so before you go see this, or at least watch them afterwards. Because they are movies that are a lot of fun. And I think that's the big takeaway. I've used that word several times now. But that's the big takeaway from the series of movies. They're fun, they're escapism, and that's what they're meant to be. They're good for the whole family, they're good for just the single person on their own, whatever the case may be. If you're a video game nerd, you're going to like this movie, which I am. I don't play as much as I used to, but I am still at heart a gamer. Always have, always will be. And honestly, it's the perfect movie for this time of year. And do I think this is going to be like a holiday classic just because it came out at Christmas time? No. This is a movie that you can watch any time of year, honestly. But I think it was a smart move on Paramount's part to release this during the holiday season, particularly Christmas time, because it is a time of year that, well, the kids are out of school, college students are out of college, people are on Christmas vacation or wherever the case may be, and they're looking for something that they can take the whole family to see, and all everybody will have a good time. This movie, it fits that bill in spades. Absolutely, positively fits that bill in spades. If I was going to give this movie a score, and I'm usually pretty generous anything in terms of my scoring for a movie. In terms of how does it fit within the universe of the other two films, I'd say it's a lock and key. It fits in very nicely. I would give it on that basis. I would give it a good. I'd give it a 8.5 or a 9 out of 10 because honestly, I don't really recall any flaws in the movie. I didn't have any moments where I was taken out of the movie by something that was said or that was done that just pulled me out of the movie. In terms of just as a standalone, I would give it a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10 because if you have not seen the other two movies, you're going to be a little bit lost. So in terms of that, I would say just as a standalone film, 7.5 out of 8, or 7.5 or an 8 out of 10. Now, as a video game geek or nerd, whichever you prefer, I would definitely give this movie a score of a 9 out of 10 because it is one of the better video game movies that has come out since the 1990s when the whole genre did kick off. And that is just the honest truth because I'll be honest with you all. As I mentioned at the start, as I mentioned earlier, the video game movie genre has been hit or miss. You had a hit with the first Mortal Kombat, you had a massive miss with its sequel, and then you had another massive miss with the reboot that came out in 2021. For those of you that may not remember my review of that movie, I panned it. It was that bad. There were segments of it that or parts of it that were good. But overall, Mortal Kombat 2021, unless you're just, well, either really, really drunk or really, really high, don't watch Mortal Kombat 2021. Just watch Mortal Kombat 1994 or 5. I can't remember right off the top of my head. I know it was one of those 2 years. It was 94 or 95. Either way. Super Mario Brothers with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo. I can't give it a good review. I can't. I've only brought myself to watch that part of that movie once, and I could not make it through. That was not a good representation of the Super Mario Brothers universe. Super Mario Brothers, the CGI movie with Chris Pratt as Mario, that I would give a solid 8 out of 10. That's a good film. That's a good video game movie. And as you know, here's the crazy thing. Of all the video game movies that they have tried to do over the years, so far, Sonic has made it the furthest in terms of installments. Sequential, not do one and then do a different version of one and then do a different version of another one within the same video game universe. This one has stayed consistent, has been consistently popular, and I will say it. If they keep the team that they have together for Sonic the Hedgehog going forward, Sonic could become one of the most profitable and most lucrative, I think one of the most well-received video game genre movie series ever. And being the video game has been around since the 1980s, well, and newer generation video games have really upped the game in terms of what video games can do in terms of story and graphics and so on and everything from the 1980s with the Atari and the Nintendo, the original Nintendo and so on. That's saying something. But if you are looking for a good time over the holiday season, over these next couple of weeks with Christmas and with New Year's, and you're looking for something that you can just go see on your own or with your significant other or with your family or with your kids or your grandkids or your nieces or nephews or wherever the case may be, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is the ticket. Now, if you want to give Mufasa a try, I'm not going to dissuade you and tell you not to do so. I'm just speaking from the experience I had seeing Sonic. Now, am I going to go see Mufasa? Probably not. And no, it's not because I'm anti-Disney or any of these other things. It's just because I have no vested interest to do so. I am a moviegoer. I love going to the movies, but I want to go see movies that actually interest me. Sonic Mufasa does not interest me. Mufasa as a cub and interacting with his brother Scar, which we already know how that story goes, just does not interest me. That's not to say it might not interest other people. but I'd rather go see a movie within a series that has already impressed me and I know I'm going to be entertained by, and I'm invested with the characters in already, rather than going to see something that I have no interest in. Now, there are some other Disney movies that have come out this year that I didn't go see, but I might give a chance on home video. Sure. Um, One of them being, of course, Inside Out 2. We have one of the movies we have in our collection is Inside Out 1. It's one that me and Madam Ambassador have never sat down to watch, but has been on our list to watch. So eventually we're going to get around to watching it. We'll more than likely pick up Inside Out 2. That is just a given because we heard good things and so on. Uh, and Shandoku, good to see you, bud. It's been a little bit. Already watched the movie 4 times. We'll watch it a fifth time tomorrow with my brother. It's so good. Yes, bud. Yes, it truly, truly is. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I honestly, for those of you that will catch this on the replay, I want to encourage you. Leave your thoughts of what you thought about Sonic 3 down in the comments below. So, and do want to give you all a heads up. Check your subscriptions to make sure you are still subscribed to the channel. YouTube's doing its goofy thing that it does every few months or every few weeks or whatever. So, um, trying to get more subs, trying to get more people on board and everything. You know, doing the same thing every YouTuber does, trying to grow so that I can have a broader audience and so I can do more stuff. So, and for those of you that might be wondering, Ambassador, things look a little bit different behind you. I have recently changed streaming platforms. I'm now working or I'm now broadcasting off of Restream. Had to part ways with StreamYard because honestly, they priced me out. And I understand the economy is a factor in that, and I don't hold any ill will towards StreamYard. They do what they have to do to keep the lights going and everything. But for me right now, I just can't afford it. But I will stream yourself, whether it's on YouTube or on Twitch or whatever the case may be, and you're looking for a good streaming platform. No, this is not paying me to do this by any means. But if you're looking for a good streaming platform, StreamYard, Restream has a lot of good tools. It's got layout and everything. It's got similar tools and everything and bells and whistles that StreamYard does. And one of them is in motion or so. This is just one that I picked for tonight's stream because I felt it was appropriate for for Sonic the Hedgehog. But yeah, honestly, and to the channel, Mr. CJH. CJ, good to see you, buddy. And of course, to both you, Nerd the Cigar and Shandoku, very Merry Christmas. And for those of you that may not have been around at the time, it was actually around Christmas time back in 1990 when I first launched my channel that I did my very first live stream. And CJH and a few other friends who are still around and everything joined me for that particular stream. We talked about our favorite Christmas specials and Christmas movies and the like and everything. And to Jeff B, another longtime friend of the channel, Jeff B. Happy Holy Days and Merry Christmas to you, buddy, and appreciate you stopping by tonight. Probably be starting to wrap up here shortly and everything because I've kind of hit all my talking points in terms of Sonic 3. And for most of you that know me, I don't belabor the point. But I do want to take a few moments because I didn't really do one this year and everything. And for those you know, I've been having some health issues and everything, personal health issues, obviously, that have kind of have made me rethink of how I do my channel. Obviously, most of you realize I don't stream nearly as much as I used to. I'm doing more uploaded content and I'm doing live streams on a more selective um, basis for movies like this, for the live rewinds and everything, when I discuss a newer movie or when I do a watch along and what have you. But I do want to say, for all of you that have been with me since 2019, or who have joined me now in 2024, I hope I continue to bring you the type of videos and streams that you all enjoy, the discussions on movies and streaming and series that we all have a passion for and that we enjoy. Um, in terms of what's coming up for next year, one thing that is on the books most definitely is I'm going to be starting a new review series on another television series, one a little more recent, but I think one that everybody will enjoy, at least I hope so. And that, of course, is the Orville. I'll have got a few friends, fellow streamers, who are also going to be joining me for those reviews. So that'll be coming up in 2025. I haven't decided if I'm going to do a New Year's Eve stream as of yet. I might do something over on X. Just depends on how I'm feeling, because I do have to work New Year's Eve, but I will be off early enough. Or I might just spend the evening with Mam Ambassador. So, but whatever the case may be, if this is not my final stream ever, but if this is my final stream or my final video for 2025, I do want to thank you all for going through this reconfiguration for the channel, going back to a little bit of an older model of how I do my content. I will try to do some more shorts, some stuff that's a little showing off my collection, or talking about movies or listings and so on, everything of movies or what have you that I enjoy, or that we all enjoy. But expect nothing but the very best from me, because you all deserve that much. But I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas, or a Happy Hanukkah, or Happy Kwanzaa, or whatever holiday that you celebrate this time of year. I want to wish you all a very happy New Year, a happy 2025. May it be a better year for all of us. I mean, all of us. And I want to thank you all for your support, for your friendship, and most of all, for embodying what I always like to say at the end of my streams. Be ambassadorial. Be kind. Be respectful. Be yourself. But never take yourself too seriously. And if you do all those things, you will always have a place in the ambassadorial wing. And until next time, this is the Ambassador, signing off.
Let's be friends.
Have you not?
And here